Welcome to another edition of Sports Nuts. I'm Jim Russo, along with my good friends Paul Izzo and Ken Berman. Ken, you want to give us a ratings review rundown as you always do?
Oh man, we the likes we're getting on YouTube and the subscribes. Get on board if you're a sports fan. That's all I can say.
Thanks,
YouTube
Ken.
eventually might close it. They can't handle it.
That's right.
Thanks.
Matter of fact, their server went down recently because of the show.
Okay, today we have a special episode that's only going to cover one topic. Now, this has come to me because of what is probably going to be the imminent partial breakup of our Boston Celtics, we say as fans, because of the salary cap. But when I started thinking about it further, I realized that we went through that whole dynasty period of the New England Patriots, and throughout it, we kept losing player after player because of the NFL salary cap, ostensibly. Then I realized that in 2022, the Boston Bruins went all in to win a Stanley Cup, to their credit, and assembled a very strong hockey team. They didn't win the cup, and they had to break the team up because of the NHL's salary cap. Mm-hmm. The Boston Red Sox in 2018 had possibly the greatest team they've ever had. And we may disagree, but the team was broken up over money. Now, we can disagree with that. And which leads us to the current Celtics. And something Bob Ryan said recently on his podcast, which was, back in 1967, the Celtics lost to the Sixers. Their run of 8 was over. And they made 0 personnel changes. Philly, who had won the championship, made 1. They added Johnny Green. So we've talked often about players like we wanted to see Mookie Betts play here. So the question occurred to me that all these things are happening, not just to Boston, but to other cities, and no one questions it. It has become so standard in sports today
That's true.
that there has to be a salary cap. And no one says they're breaking up good teams, this stuff. So we thought we'd talk about it today. And I guess the first, just briefly, and Evan can put this up at some point, the NHL has a hard cap, no exemptions. The NFL, hard cap, but bonuses can be spread over the length of the deal, which is why you see people like Tom Brady restructuring. The Major League Baseball technically has no salary cap, but they have a luxury tax over a certain amount. And the NBA has a cap, a luxury tax, a first apron, and a second apron, which we can talk about some of the penalties after, but which are severe. So my first question, I guess, to throw on the table is your general thoughts about salary caps to start us off. Paul.
I'd love to start off.
Oh.
So this topic is near and dear to my heart because I love the history of sport, and salary cap is a very interesting subject. Salary caps came about, in my view, as an inevitable result of expansion. So if you look at Major League Baseball, for example, it was confined to the East Coast. There were 8 American League teams, 8 National League teams, and the New York teams dominated. It got to the point in the 1950s where you just expected it. It would either be the Yankees-Dodgers, the Yankees-Giants, the Dodgers versus whoever. Of course, there were exceptions. But for a long period of time, beginning in the 1920s, the World Series and Major League Baseball in general was dominated by big markets. St. Louis, which was a rich team with a lot of backing, also was another rich team that competed, especially in the 1930s and going into the 1940s. So you had these teams like the Kansas City Athletics, the Boston Red Sox, which, believe it or not, were considered a small market team, very low attendance, the Cleveland Indians, that struggled for the most part to compete. And then something comes along, and that's TV revenue. And when TV revenue comes along, you got to ask national TV revenue. These teams started saying, well, We'll divide up that national TV revenue, but what about the local revenue? The local revenue gives the big market teams a huge advantage. So if the Red Sox and the Yankees are splitting up the national TV revenue, but the Yankees are getting way more, right,
From local.
than local, then they're going to have a competitive advantage. Baseball chose not to divide up the local revenue. Football decided to divide up the local revenue. When they divided up the local revenue, they created a more a level playing field. So football has no local revenue anymore, really. So that's all part of it, is the history. As the leagues began to
Can
expand,
we just interject
well,
one
I just
thing?
want to say,
No,
I
let
didn't-
me just
okay.
interject this, just for people's edification, the younger people. While this was going on, though, there was no free agency. So the Yankees' advantage was not that they could go and outbid someone. You're not saying that. In the
No, but they
50s.
had like 10 minor league teams.
Correct.
They
Okay,
had
just
vast
so people know,
scouting.
just so the younger people know.
Right,
Go
they
ahead.
had vast scouting
Yeah, continue.
apparatus that other teams couldn't afford.
Right, continue.
And if great players came along, they very often got traded by those teams. You know, Lefty Grove got traded from the low-budget
Yep.
Athletics to the Red
Right,
Sox, who had
right.
more money than than the Athletics, the Philadelphia Athletics at the time. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. As expansion came, teams came into these leagues saying, well, we have to be able to compete. Like, if you want us to buy all this money and come into this league, we have to be able to compete. So if you want to have a league where there are certain cities where they can dominate, that makes it hard to have a competitive league. The NFL realized that before anybody else, and that's why the NFL is one of the reasons they're one of the top leagues, if not the top league in the world, because they have spreading out the revenue, all for one for all. And the big differentiator in the NFL is not money. Otherwise, the Giants would be winning, the Jets would be winning. It's mostly who has the best quarterback. It's really more of a
But
scout.
the NFL has not stopped dynasties. They're a league that, since these salary caps came in, have
Right.
had numerous dynasties.
Right, but nobody sees that as a function of spending. It's more a function of who gets Patrick Mahomes, who gets Tom Brady, who gets Peyton
Yeah,
Manning.
so the competitive is not based on the money. It's based on you get Tom Brady.
Right, but imagine how lopsided it would be if it weren't that way. If the NFL team could spend as much as it wanted, then you could go get Tom Brady and Lawrence Taylor and the best lineman and the best wide receiver, and that would create a lopsided NFL. So the bottom line is I am a total proponent of salary caps. The stricter, the better, because I firmly believe it helps create competitive balance, and I think the history shows it.
Okay, something we talked about a lot to go back. You pointed out that the NFL had way less parity than Major League Baseball.
What's that?
Yes, you have pointed that
You've-
out.
Oh,
many
now.
times. Many
Yes,
times.
but I
For
but
a
that,
long time
but I,
now.
but I don't see that as a function of spending. That's a function of the nature of the
Management?
game. Whoever has the best quarterback wins. It's like having a hot goalie. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are primarily the reasons that the Patriots won all those years, not the elaborate spending of Robert Kraft. In fact, Kraft was usually in the middle for spending.
Real cash lowest,
Right.
lower end.
Yeah.
Real.
Ken?
So in case people know this, you two are both attorneys, lawyers, know all about this. My questions about salary cap is, one, is parity good? Do we like parity? Has that made it more interesting? Because it seemed to me when there was, in basketball, when there was teams that dominated, they had better viewing. It seemed to me. I don't know. I don't have all the stats.
NBA would love Celtics Lakers every year in the
Yeah,
finals.
they'd love it every year. And why don't we want dynasties then? If I thought it was good for sports back then. The other thing about salary caps that get me is that most of them I don't really totally understand. Especially the NBA. Jim pointed out there's the cap, there's luxury, there's first apron, there's second apron,
Yep.
and it makes me feel like I can't understand a trade, or is there going to be a trade?
That's true.
So that makes it, like I don't get it. I'm going to be honest. Like a lot of it, I don't get. I guess it does create more equality. I would think it should. So I just get confused, and each one of them has their own.
Yeah,
like
it's
baseball
different.
doesn't really have a cap, but if you spend too much, then you pay enormous amounts of money in luxury tax. Correct?
Yeah.
So you can spend whatever you want. I don't know if and I don't know what the best system would be either.
let's talk about a couple other things. Like I said, in the old days, there was no free agency, so the advantages, as Paul said,
Well, how
were
old
in
ages
scouting
is that though?
and
Free agency goes.
to the mid '70s with
Okay,
Marvin Miller. So that's what
right,
I wanted.
But
okay.
only in baseball, because
Yeah,
free agency of football comes later.
Right.
Right.
So you've got
And basketball, I believe.
first of all, a genesis of caps. You got to go back to the Oscar Robertson case, and that case basically said the NBA, you can only have a draft if the players agree to it, because it's not legal. So the players agreed to it. It's the same with caps. And one of my big questions, like with this NBA thing, is how in the name of anything did the NBA agree? The NBA Players Association agree to this.
I don't know.
I have no idea, because the NBA Players Association agreed to all this: first apron, second apron. You know, what the Celtics are probably going to have to trade Drew Holiday. They might not be able to find because they're in the second apron, and I know this gets into the minutia. They can't trade multiple salaries for him. It's got to be one guy. They got to now find a third team that has cap space
Right.
to go get it. So I agree with you totally that it's so hard to understand. The other thing about parity to me is, whoever has the best quarterback. The Yankees went down for 10 years, from the mid-'60s to the '70s. Then free agency came, and they rebuilt. Okay? So I guess to piggyback Ken's point to put on the table for discussion is, in the 80s, people still rave about it. People who did not see it rave about the NBA in the 80s. There were 4 good teams, okay? Bad trades resulted in 4, but supposedly it's the glory era, right? And those teams were super teams. And I still say that the NBA would love the Celtics, and they're not going to get it, but they'd love it. So do we at all think that these teams having to be broken up, it is good to have some dynasties? The Patriots, I think, were good for football.
I would like to take football out of this, because I think football is skewed by the quarterback. If football were the weakest financial team in the NFL that doesn't want to spend to the cap could land a Tom Brady and then compete. So I think it's a little misleading to cite football, because in football you can get a dynasty. Kansas City is, they're a big spending team, but they're not like breaking the bank every year. They had to get rid of wide receivers. They've had to cast off
that's
good
the
players,
cap.
right? But why do they keep winning? Because they have Patrick Mahomes. That's why.
Yeah.
I think the better example to talk about is the NBA, and I think you raised some good points. But I don't think people in Milwaukee and
No, they don't.
and these other towns want to go back to the 80s. I don't think people in Memphis want the 80s. I don't think people in New Orleans want the 80s. I don't think people in Charlotte want the 80s. People in San Antonio like it.
course.
They had a nice run with
course.
Duncan.
Yeah.
I think people in other towns, Denver, which is probably not a big market, like it that they got Jokic and have been able to, have a little run. They know
the
it's not
NBA
going to
is
last.
similar to football.
They know it's
you
not
got
gonna
You
last.
got the best player. You got a big advantage. Tim Duncan, 5 titles. Larry,
No, but
3.
you're changing the subject. Your question was, should you be able to compile talent like the Celtics have and not be so punished for it? In other words, if you're willing to spend all that money on Holiday and this guy and that guy and that guy, what did I read that Sam Hauser, who makes $10 million, cost the Celtics over $40 million?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a huge penalty.
Yeah,
and
he
a
may
lot, I
be
don't know
traded.
if our viewers know this, but if you go into the second apron more than a certain number of years, you lose draft picks or you fall back
You
in the
fall
draft.
back.
So the last pick in the
Okay.
draft.
The last pick in the
So
draft,
it's
unless
a pretty,
you're in the top 6.
It's a pretty draconian. So
Yes.
think about it. You go on a run like the Celtics are, but you think, okay, by 2029 we're going to stink and we're going to have to rebuild, but we can't rebuild because we're going to lose our draft picks. So this all but forces teams like the Celtics to break it up.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, you can't sign a wave player who's got more than a certain amount. You can't use a trade exception by aggregating salaries. You can't include cash in a trade. First-round picks 7 years out are frozen, unable to be traded. And as Paul said, the pick goes down, if you're in for 3. But the thing is, when you build the team, all right, look at Brad Stevens. Someone called this the summer of Brad Stevens. And it is. It's a good line. He had to go. He went all in to win in 2024 and then tried to repeat. And I think, personally, the plan was for 2 more years. And the Jason Tatum injury, I think they were going to do this again, especially if they won. I think they were going to try.
Oh, absolutely. If they won, they were going to run it back
again. And now we got to break it up. And personally, I just think any team that's willing to go in, I think these penalties you used a good word, they're too draconian. I mean, it's just, and then the NHL, to me, you look at that cap, and it's a hard cap where teams are constantly losing good players. You can't even follow the team. Okay, we got a real good team. We just won the cup, but we're going to lose 3 players because there's no exceptions there. There's none.
But I know I've always known you to be pro player and pro player union.
I am.
But in the NHL, the cap forces these guys at the peak of their career out into the free market where they can get.
They could go anyway.
Right. Well, they can get money.
No,
so
I'm not talking about their free agency years.
No,
I'm talking about when a team wins a cup and then says, well, we're going to be over the cap. What do we do?
Yeah, but the NHL would say to you, in the last 10 years, we had 8 different champions. The NBA would say in the last 7 years, including this year, we're going to have 7 different champions because Oklahoma hasn't won it and the Pacers haven't won it, or
so
the
is
Knicks
that,
haven't won it.
As you pointed
so
out about
they like that.
As you pointed out about football for the other side of this argument, is that a result of Denver just getting Jokic and surrounding him with a team? Is that the result of Oklahoma City, a small market team, fleecing the LA Clippers, who are a big market team, to get Shea and picks for Paul George?
Yeah.
So that's got not really a lot to do with the cap to me, or the second apron. Denver, again, is an example. After they won, they had to shed players. They're not the same team as when they won. I mean, I get the competitive thing, but I personally, as a fan, would have liked to see that Denver team try to repeat.
You just argued against your point.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You
No.
absolutely did. You said that these other teams emerged as a result of something that had nothing to do with money, that it was just good trades.
No, nothing to do with the cap.
Right.
They didn't have anything to do with the cap.
Right, didn't have anything to do
So
with
what
the
do we
cap.
need?
So why are you worried about the cap?
I'm worried about the cap because of this. I'm worried about the cap because of this is my point. Let's look. Celtics got to be broken up. Denver broken up. Okay, couldn't take the same team in to repeat. Oklahoma City is going at some point. Now they're fortunate because they have young players. This might be a difference, but who won before Denver? I can't even remember.
Golden State? No.
Golden State.
Golden State
Right.
had to be broken up, okay? That's what's worrying me, is that we're having to break up these teams. Don't even bring the same team back. The Celtics tried, and look what's happened.
Well,
Ken.
I just want to correct one thing.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Correct.
you don't have to do anything. Okay, if you want to pay this, if you want to
Exactly.
pay the second apron, if you want to suffer the penalty, what if the Celtics? And by the way, I was talking to a Celtic employee the other night, and I said to him, I don't think they're going to break it up. I'm going out on a limb and saying, with the new ownership, they're going to say, we'll deal with this problem down the road. I think they're going to run it back in some form. I don't think they're going to break it up. I don't think that's a given. So
But
to say they
I
have
guess
to
maybe
break
I
it
should qualify breaking
it's
it
a
up.
practical matter. They
I
have
think they're
break
going
it
to
up.
keep Porzingis and trade Holiday. I think with the Tatum injury, it is going to cause them to trade him a year sooner than they wanted to.
Well, the Athletic newspaper is already speculating
Yeah.
Holiday goes to the Dallas
right.
Mavericks.
That's so. I mean,
but
that's-
but I heard talk about they need 1 or 2 more teams to make that happen.
They
so.
do, because they can't. Dallas can't give them salaries back
Right.
with multiple players because they're in the second apron. I guess what I'm saying is it really good to penalize teams who do their jobs well and guys that want to spend money? I mean, we're over here criticizing Kraft, who's got the money and apparently didn't spend it.
Well,
I mean,
I just feel I have to be honest.
why wouldn't you be honest?
If I were in Boston, well, because I'm an attorney. I'm not always honest. Sometimes I'm paid to add.
All-time great Boston sports line. Right
Well,
there.
no. Sometimes I'm paid to argue a point, and I think, I'm not sure this is really what I would say if it was
right.
in front of the dear Lord.
Okay, be honest.
Okay. A lot of this is driven by our affinity for the Boston Celtics, right? I mean, we'd love it if the owners could spend whatever they want and just go crazy and be dominant. But again, I'm thinking of it from a league perspective. There are 30 teams that want to say to their fans, there's hope. And think about how successful the system has been.
I don't think it's been that successful.
Yes, it has. Minnesota is in the hunt.
Paul,
Denver, Jim,
That's
let me
because
finish.
there's multi-good players in the NBA.
Okay, then the cap isn't a problem. You can't have it both ways.
It is
you
a
can't
problem.
Say the cap is
best
a problem
teams are
and then
being
say,
broken up.
No, well, that's the only problem. The cap is also giving opportunities to teams like Denver and Memphis, who had a great team, and Minnesota, and the LA Clippers, and the Celtics, and the Knicks, and all these different teams.
Can you, Paul? This was a problem in sports in the NBA when they didn't have enough players to stock 30 teams. They do now. That's got nothing to do with money. It's got nothing to do with the cap. It's got nothing to do with anything except we're now 25% international, and those players are good. They can stock 30 teams. I don't think MLB can stock 30 teams, and I don't think the NFL can stock 30 competitive
Jim,
teams.
I have deep respect for you, but I don't think your argument
And I don't think you're right on
is
this.
logical.
It's
You're
totally
saying-
logical. You've got so much talent. You can stock teams. So why?
That's a different question.
Well, yeah, but it leads to the next question. Why do you have to break Denver up when there's enough talent to stock the league?
Because there isn't enough top-end talent. You know that.
No, there is. So you gotta take Denver's 5th and 6th player and say you gotta trade him.
So an owner comes along and says, I want Jokic, SGA, Jason Tatum, and Pritchard off the bench, and you think that the teams would be competitive in that environment? There's no way that would work.
I'm not saying maybe we can't go to a total non-cap league, but this is too much. And you that stuff you said about the Celtics, that may apply to you too and other people. But I've been consistent on this for years. Maybe consistently wrong. Certainly consistent in the vast minority. I get that, okay? But I've been consistent on this because one thing I value is the game itself. And until this modern NBA, the game itself suffered. Why? There were too many teams because we got to accommodate the lower teams, and we can't let anybody get really good and take the game to a higher level. What we're seeing, like in the NBA now with all these great players, is the game being played at a level we've never seen it. We've never seen this. I'm sorry.
And it's been in the salary cap era.
I realize that, but that's because of the number of great players. So what I'm saying is we could have let Denver keep Caldwell Pope and their 7th guy, and the leagues would have been fine. So maybe you say, okay, you can't pay somebody 3 salaries at $50 million. Okay, to address your point. Because that is a good point. What if, I'll acknowledge that. What if the Knicks went out and said, we're just going to pay Jokic, Shea, and Halliburton? I acknowledge that. That is something to consider. But I think when you're talking about Caldwell Pope's got to move, and Holiday's got to move, and Sam Hauser, of all people, has got to be traded, I think it's a problem.
Well,
I
I think
respect your opinion.
I think what Jim's saying that I think about all the time is that we fall in love with our teams, and we used to love the days where the same guys were coming back year after year in any sport.
Yeah.
Like when the Red Sox brought back almost the same team every year, it was like, that's my team. I'm in love with that group. They're going to do it this year. And if they were good, they'd have a good year. And trust me, I mean, the Celtics, Bird, Magic, McHale, and Maxwell came back every year. And they got DJ, and he stuck around. We liked that they brought him back. And I think that's what Jim is saying, that we don't get to do that anymore. My question to you is, which one of these leagues has what we consider the best salary cap? Is it baseball?
I would think baseball. Paul?
I don't like the baseball. I think that the big market teams have too much of an advantage. I think what's happening with the Dodgers is a little scary for baseball. Now, we've had that concern before, and the thing about baseball is so random. Jim and I learned this lesson last year on the Cape.
Oh, yeah.
The way the game is played,
That we can agree on.
that you literally you could get 9 Hall of Famers on your team
And lose.
in the opening round.
True.
Like so it's not always.
You've always said about the baseball playoffs. Just get in.
Just
Because
get
it's
in.
random.
Just get in. Not the wild card, but get in where they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
past the wild card, and you have just
Right.
as good a shot.
And baseball has a problem, I think, in that the Dodgers exposed the loophole in that cap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the delayed money.
With
delayed.
Otani agreeing to a 1970s style contract, where agents are opposed to those now. You can invest the money. They want it all up front, right? He agreed to spread it out. That's got to be addressed. I will say that.
Yeah. So you say what's the best system? I like the harder cap systems because I believe
Is that hockey has the hottest cap?
I
Yes.
think hockey has the
It
hardest
does.
cap.
No
Yeah.
exemptions.
Yeah. Because I think that it rewards creativity. It's like a little league draft back in the old days.
Yeah.
Those are passé now, but.
Right.
I know the players better than you do, and I end up with
Well,
a better
we're running
team.
out of time, so I just want to ask: would you, either of you, and yes, we're all biased about the Celtics, but would you favor the NBA coming down a little, if lack of a better term?
Well, I didn't get to tell you my idea that I haven't seen anywhere. Okay,
Go ahead.
I think the problem with salary caps is the fans are punished, and here's
Yeah.
what I mean by that. You take all the league revenue, all the revenue from this, that, and the other thing, and you say that's a hard cap. But the money that's paid by the fans at the gate is additional money that you can use. Because what's happened in some of these cities is the fans aren't showing up.
Yeah, 'cause
Especially
like
with
Jim said, they're
baseball.
losing their players that they
And the
like.
owners are pocketing the money.
Right.
In Boston, they're showing up and paying high ticket prices, and yet, assuming there were a hard cap, they would be punished. Celtics fans pay, well, I can tell you that we pay very high ticket prices.
Yep.
And we show up every game.
They sell out
It's
every
sell out
game.
every game. Why should we be punished for that? So if there was some way to take the local fan revenue and give you a little extra to reward fans for showing up, that's always been my little idea. But otherwise, I am firmly on the side of salary caps.
I'm
Acknowledging that they hurt dynasties.
Yeah, which I think is a shame because I look at the Steelers. I have a friend, as you know, who's one of the biggest Steelers fans in all the world.
Psycho.
And I told him, I used to tell him, I said, they're the best, this 1970 Steelers were the best football team I ever saw, maybe until the 07 Patriots. But I said, you'd never keep that team together today. And, I don't care about loyalty to Pittsburgh. There's no way, and all the fans will know it. You couldn't keep Joe Green and L.C. Greenwood. You couldn't keep John Stallworth and Lynn Swann. You couldn't keep Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier. There's no way. They would have gone for the money. I'm sorry.
Terry Bradshaw would have got all the money.
Terry Bradshaw would have
would've
got all the money. That's
right.
correct. So that's a shame because that team had a Hall of Famers at a ton of positions. The other thing I think is interesting, and this is a little contrast to Wellington Mara, who, as Paul hinted at, in football said, okay, I am willing to share the TV money. George Steinbrenner once said, when he was asked about his spending, he said, I didn't buy a team in Cleveland. I bought a team in New York. I think there's merit to that. Now, the fact is he did own a team in Cleveland in the American Basketball League, but we'll leave that aside. But I think there's some merit to that. I just don't like when these teams have to be broken up like this. I don't like it. And I think the leagues are strong enough now. When Paul spoke about expansion, I think at that time maybe you needed something. The NBA does not need this. There's too many good players. They can be spread out. We watch Celtics almost every night. A team has at least one, and I would say majority 2 Hall of Famers. So
Do you think that some of what's driving the desire to have a cap in the NBA is a fear of like a Russian oligarch or a Saudi Arabian sheik buying a team and just
I
saying,
really don't know. That's an
I
interesting
don't,
point.
I don't care
what it costs. Yeah.
I mean, look at the money that just went into the Live thing, which nobody watches.
Right.
Interesting point. I
Right.
hadn't thought of that.
Because somebody with outrageous sums of money could buy a team, and like the Celtics, despite the fact that they're hampered by the second apron, just sold for $6 billion.
Right.
Correct.
So within the confines of the conference room of NBA owners, they would say to you, "You're a purist. You care about dynasties. We care about bucks." What drives people to watch us is the fact that at the beginning of the season, can an NBA fan go online and have hope? I'm either going to be in the playoffs. They expanded it now to the play-in game.
Yeah.
So now almost everybody has hope. And if I don't make the playoffs, I might get the first-round pick, who this year is this guy, and next year
Yeah.
it'll be somebody else. So there's always hope. They sell hope.
Yeah.
And if some guy can come along and spend $20 billion for the Knicks because he's a New York guy and he's a Hollywood mogul and he just gets every great player, I can't sell hope to the New Orleans fan.
Okay, so like I said, modify it a little so that you can accumulate salaries over a certain amount maybe, but you don't prevent the 2023 Denver Nuggets from playing the 2024 Boston Celtics, which would have been one heck of a series for the game itself. It would have been basketball played at an unbelievably high level.
It would have, but they didn't prevent it. Denver chose not to spend
Oh, I know.
money.
They chose not to spend. I know. But why even put them in that position when they're Denver? Never mind the Celtics, who are, Boston and all that. They're Denver. Why do we want to do that? Why do we want to say to, San Antonio, if they, they could be in, all these small market teams will eventually be in this position. And when you tell a small market team, okay, that $10 million player is now worth 30, they're less willing to absorb it than the Celtics. So they're going to break up sooner than Boston. So I would just want to modify it. I think I also think the union in football has done a disservice to
Oh,
their
of course.
players.
Yeah,
I'll never understand how Tom Brady didn't make as much as Steph Curry. He plays in the most popular league. He is just as big a star. And the NHL union, come on, I'm sorry. Agreeing to a hard cap is just, I don't know what they're thinking because, guys, you don't have to do this. It's just Marvin Miller.
Each situation is different.
Because the NHL is a different animal than all of them. They
those
don't
players,
have money.
Yeah, those players, you say to them, go on strike over a hard cap. The NHL might shut down for you.
They might, but I mean, Marvin Miller proved, Marvin Miller, a brilliant, he changed the game of baseball
Did a full
and
report on him
sports.
in
So anyway, any
Can I just
last
say
words?
one last
Of
thing?
course, yep.
We're talking about this cap stuff. It's not my money, so to the new owners of the Celtics, don't break it up.
Yeah, that's the other thing, Ken. I am not concerned with the owners. And when the league could not sustain this number of teams, I know this is heresy living in Boston. I didn't care if teams folded. I didn't, because I wanted the level of play raised, and I didn't want 15 more jobs for basketball players who weren't at that level. I can't say that anymore about the NBA. I can't. And
Not my
I would
money.
defer to our
Keep it
hockey
together.
expert TG, whether the
Who's not
NHL,
here.
whether the NHL can do it. I think baseball has trouble doing it, and I know football has trouble in doing it. They cannot sustain talent levels on the amount of teams they have. And hockey, the goalies, Paul said, the goalie's so important, so get a good goalie. But anyway, I think this was a really good discussion. And
Paul, last word?
No,
last word.
I'm burned.
You done?
I'm done.
Good?
Okay.
Put a fork in you?
Yep.
Yep. My
good
last
job,
word is it's going to be a tough summer with the Celtics on the cap. So anyway,
I hope not.
Hey,
Anyway.
we're just weeks away from summer ball, though.
that's true. Summer League starts. We'd like to dedicate this show to a former member of Sports Nuts, since this was a show that we obviously have different opinions. And for you older fans, you remember the great Jan Goldstein. We're going to dedicate this show to him,
Yeah, Jan
who
the
used to
man.
have legendary, humorous verbal
Some
battles
not so humorous.
with Paul Izzo. That's true. So that's it for Sports Nuts. For Paul Izzo, Ken Berman, I'm Jim Russo. We'll be back with you with another episode shortly.
Thank you for watching Boston Sports Nuts. You can find all of our episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For more information, go to westwoodmediacenter.tv or follow Boston Sports Nuts on Facebook, Instagram, and X.